Hello, my name is James. I'm a portrait photographer from Portsmouth in the UK, and I welcome you to my studio and to this workshop. So you've bought your first flashlight. Everyone buys their first flashlight. Everyone remembers their first flashlight. This isn't mine. Mine was much older than this. When I bought my first flashlight, it was used to do an event, a New Year's Eve dance, where people would come along and have their portraits taken on the way in. I needed a 2-light setup just to capture people on the way in. And that was my payment for that job, was that someone bought me some new flashlights. You don't have to buy a fancy one like this. You can amend a speed light that you already have. An existing speed light, you just need a receiver and a transmitter to go on top of the camera, a receiver for the flashlight itself, and that can go on top of a tripod and be an off-camera flash. You can get adapters for this through different companies that will put different modifiers on the light, and that will modify the quality of the light coming out. The one flashlight that we're going to be using today to show you how to use a strobe if you've just bought your first one is this one. It's the Elinchrom one. Really simple light here from Elinchrom, and we've got the basic kit softbox here, just a very simple square softbox just that goes on the end to modify the light to this square soft output of light. Very sort of, you can use it in a lot of scenarios, this one, and it's easy to pack away. The Elinchrom one is completely leadless, so it doesn't plug in anywhere, it just has a USB-C port to plug into the wall. And to turn it on, you simply just hit the power button on the back, and we should see the lovely little Elinchrom logo come up, and the lovely little Elinchrom sign in here goes blue on the side to tell me that there's plenty of charge in the unit here. Now, if we're taking our first portrait with our flashlight, what we want to do is we want to have a look at the light in the room, the light that's falling on our subject, to assess what ambient light is currently in the space and how we can eliminate that ambient light so that we're just exposing our portrait with the light coming from our off-camera flash. Welcome to Jasmine, who's coming to the studio to be our model here. She's up against a very simple white background, and we've pulled her up. She's going to take a little step towards me here. We've pulled her off the white background, so hopefully that white background won't go white. It'll be a sort of grey colour in the picture, just to give us a simple portrait. And what I want to do is I want to assess the ambient light in the room. Now, we could do that through a light meter, but we're just going to do it as if we haven't got a light meter, because they cost a lot of money, and as if we're just doing it through the camera itself. So I'm going to set my camera to manual mode to begin with. I'm going to move the ISO up to 100, so the lowest ISO you can possibly use to give us the best quality file. I'm going to be shooting on raw images so that any detail in there I can bring back in and amend later if I wish. I'm going to be shooting on f8 because I want a nice, good depth of field throughout the portrait. I want lots of details in this portrait to be in focus, and using that slightly more closed up aperture, we're going to eliminate a lot of the ambient light in the room. I'm going to be shooting at 1/60th of a second, so it syncs up at the fastest shutter speed I possibly can with the flashlight here. If we shoot any faster, we have to then work with flashlights that can only work at high shutter speed sync, and that is a different workshop for a different time. So we're just going with standard shutter speed sync here. 1/60th of a second, f8, ISO 100, hand on the hip there for me. Nice and simple, looking straight down the middle of the lens. 3, 2, 1, go. And what we should have here is a perfectly pitch black image. Perfect, there we go. Exactly as we intended. What we now know is that all of the ambient light here around this room, we've got a few fluorescent lights and a few LED lights, and we've got a window over there. All of that light in the room, that means that you can see me and you can see Jasmine here on this video, are not affecting the settings that we've put in camera. They're not affecting the image there at all. There is no ambient light in this room that is going to affect the image at those settings. So we know that whatever we do with this light is the only thing that's going to affect the portrait here. That's a bit close, isn't it? So to turn this light on, we're just going to press the power button here. Going to come in nice and close. And on here, we're going to press this little button here where the little sundial is here. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn on the modifier light inside the light there. So there it is off, and there it is on. It's just a little LED light in there for this light source here. The benefit of having that on there is if we come in and have a look at Jasmine, we can see that when we turn it off, all we're going to see is just the ambient light in the room affecting the picture. And then when we turn it back on, we can now see the way that this light is affecting the portrait. It's a really, really good guide for us as photographers to see where light's falling on the face and how it's going to affect the final image. To start with, if I was taking my first picture with my first new strobe light that I just invested in, and I just got it out of the box and it was all nice and charged up, and I just put the softbox together and I'd got it up on there, I'd want to take my light here and I'd want to move it around about 45 degrees round to the side. If we come around here, we'll be able to see here. The temptation is just to plonk the light there and just have it going straight into the portrait. We can take one there like that if we wish. In fact, we will do that just to have a look at the settings. So straight on here, we're just going to go underneath our light here. Jasmine's going to turn slightly side on towards us, looking straight towards the camera. Tiny little smile if you can. 3, 2, 1. And at these settings, at 3.0, on the power there, we can see that we've got a well exposed image there at these settings here. I've put the white balance as well for anyone interested. In studio when I'm working with strobes, I've just put the white balance here at 4500 Kelvin so that every image that's coming out of the camera is shooting out at the same white balance, so they're easy to batch correct later on, but I know that everything's going to be coming out at roughly the same color temperature. This is good exposure over here though, which is nice and simple. We're right in the middle of the power range here for this light, 3.0. It will go down all the way to 0.1, and it's kind of like a decimal scale here with Elinchrom. So every stop of exposure goes up by 1.0. So for example, if I put it up by 2 stops from previously it was at 3.0, now I'm going to put it up by 2 stops all the way up, or put it up by 1 stop actually, all the way up to 4.0 because it only goes up to 4.3. I'm going to put it up by a whole stop here, keep the light in roughly the same position, cross the arms and shoot roughly the same picture, turn slightly side on. That's lovely. 3, 2, 1 at the same settings. What we're going to get is a stop over exposure. It's actually quite a nice fashion light there, which is nice and simple. If I wanted it to look exactly the same as the previous shot, I can't move the shutter speed because we're going to go into high shutter speed sync. Can't really move the ISO because we're already on the lowest ISO. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dial up the aperture from f8 to f11, and we should get the same exposure as we did for the first shot there. And there we go. Same exposure as we got for the first image. We've moved the power up by 1 stop, and to collaborate with that, we've moved the aperture and squeezed that in by 1 stop from f8 to f11. Now we can shoot a range of portraits here. We're going to keep it where we are here at 4.0, and at f11 we're just going to move that aperture up and we're just going to shoot at this level here. We can shoot a range of portraits, but what we're relying on is we're relying on Jasmine to do different things to get different looks because we're not moving the light at all. We're just going to do that now. So actually the way you're stood there, this is a real good point here. In between shots here, and this wasn't planned, Jasmine just stood here, you drop this knee slightly. She just stood here just with her hands in front of her, nice and tight in there, little drop knee, and was just looking across to me. Really sympathetic look, but it's a way that she feels comfortable naturally posing when she was off camera. If she's comfortable posing that way off camera and she feels comfortable, and that's kind of like a safe sort of pose for her, she feels comfortable in that pose, she's going to look comfortable in that pose. And I kind of like the way that it's held there. So you're just going to look straight towards me, just in there. Now we're just going to move it slightly. Move the hands up onto the hip here for me, just a little bit more there for me. That's perfect. Just looking towards me. 3, 2, 1. Turn the head slightly away from the light. 3, 2, 1. Drop the chin down just a fraction. We've zoomed in now with the lens there, so we've just gone nice and close in and around the face. And 3, 2, 1. So slight changes of posing and changes in our zoom lens give us different shots here, from close-up shots in and around the head to half-length shots to the side there. Nice and simple. Now we're just going to do our final change to give us a different look, and we're just going to move the light. And the simplest place to move the light first to get a different look in the portrait is just to move the light around 45 degrees this way, and just to give it a very slight tilt down. What I'm looking to achieve every time I set up for my first portrait, and this is where I would go for my first portrait, 45 degrees round, 45 degrees up, and 45 degrees down, is I want to run a line from the middle of the back of the light here, conveniently through the Elinchrom branding, all the way through the Elinchrom branding here that conveniently again goes through the middle of the softbox. And then I want to draw an imaginary arrow, and that imaginary arrow should hit just above Jasmine's eye, roughly where the eyebrow is. And that's where I want the light to be for a standard portrait. I'm just going to jack it up just a little bit there, and we should see around here, if we take a shot there, you should see that that line is now going directly down onto Jasmine's eye there, slightly above, giving us a nice flattering light. We've got shadow on this side of the face, we've got light on this side of the face. Because we've not moved the light closer to Jasmine, there's no change in power. So therefore, there's no need to change the settings. But if there is a change, and you do notice a change in exposure, we know the easiest thing to do is to amend either the power on the light up or down, or just to nudge that aperture up and down a third of a stop here or there. Hands on the hips there for me. Drop the knee there for me. That's perfect. Looking straight towards me for this shot. In 3, 2, 1. Hands in the pockets there for me if we can. Look at that shadow in the face now. Looking straight towards me. Tilt the head this way for me slightly. 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Looking down towards the floor. Eyes to me, go. Perfect. 3, 2, move the shoulder around this way just a little bit. 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful range of portraits there. And the more we turned our head away from the light, the deeper those shadows on that narrow side of the face have become. So two things there, moving the model and moving the light is going to change the way that the light falls on the face. And this is all just like a one light setup. We've not even really scratched the surface of the possibilities of this. The real possibilities of this that we can showcase to you, you can find on our website, nofussmust.com, and our introduction to one light photography shows you 10 completely different ways to use one light to light one face without even moving the direction of the face.
Fly lighting, I just want to talk to you about the principle of light and the way that it makes us feel. We tend to use light in a way that it's always above the face. It's always placed at 45 degrees above, 45 degrees to the side, that kind of thing. We never really sort of light from low down and underneath. This is a thing in nature. This is a thing whereby as humans, we only ever see ourselves lit from above because the sun can't light us from below the horizon. It can only start at the horizon, which is eye level, and go up and over us during the day until it sets in the evening.
Have a look at it, have a download of it, and see what tips you can pick to use in your next shoot with your one flashlight. Like and subscribe and leave a comment, right?
Yep, like and subscribe.
Don't let Jasmine down. Like and subscribe. All the best.